the biggest things when we're talking about taking livestock into the national forest, number one, they have in most western states, there's a leave no trace policy. So basically that means that we're trying to do as little impact on the forest and on wherever we ride as we possibly can. A lot of that is in your preparation of the animal. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about 3 different scenarios. The first scenario is basically you've got a horse or an animal, or you've rented one, or you've borrowed one, or whatever, and you're going to go out and trail ride or go out on a day hunt, basically. So you're going to ride out a day. You're not staying anywhere. You're going to be coming back to camp. So what do you want to take with you? Well, first of all, you need a saddle that's equipped for whatever riding you're doing, whether it be trail riding. If you're doing trail riding, you want to make sure that you have a comfortable saddle. If you're doing a hunting, you want to make sure you have a saddle that you can strap gear, like gun scabbards and bow scabbards and whatever type of things you need. This is a saddle here that I modified to basically take just about anything you would possibly want, from just day trips to just basic trail rides. You do things like put extra rings here. You can slide axe handles down in there and strap that. You can strap scabbards to both sides. Nordic fork. This is a device that can hold breast collars up for different sloped animals. The slope of the shoulder after a long ride here can create serious wear if it's not properly put on. So we'll get her saddled up and show you kind of what your basic horse ready to do whatever, the beginning part of whatever you want to do. Okay, so this mare here is pretty much ready for figuring out what you want to do. So are we going to go trail ride? Are we going to go hunt? What are we going to do? What are we going to need to take with us? And how are we going to attach it to her? Now, in most situations, whether you're trail riding or you're hunting or whatever, you're going to want to take some saddlebags that can carry stuff like binoculars, cameras, your lunch, stuff like that. So you got to have the proper equipment to be able to hold saddlebags, saddle springs that are in good condition. So we know that this basically right here is what we're going to need to take the animal into the woods and leave the house. So we've prepared ourselves for this. So now we want to talk about the different scenarios of hunting versus trail riding. So trail riding, we can pretty much do everything we want here. Maybe a raincoat on top attached to the back in case you have bad weather. And here, this is where you can carry med kits for your horse, things that you would need for a day trip. One of the most important things that you can attach to a horse is hobbles, in my opinion. How are we going to take care of this animal when we get out into the woods? Even if it's for a 5-hour trip, how are we going to? Have they ate enough in the morning? What is the care of the animal once we step into the woods? Because this animal is the only mode of transportation that we have to get us into the type of country we have. Just like we demonstrated with the backpacking, we are replacing that with this animal. And it's very, very important to make sure that this animal is prepared, and we've thought about it's his or hers needs. So hobbles either go in here. This one doesn't, actually it has it on this side. You can see it on that saddle over there. There's a strap, a leather strap on this side that you can attach it to right to the saddle. But if hobbles basically allow the animal to eat while you are in the woods. It basically, and we'll give a demonstration later, but it basically ties the front feet together and allows them to walk around, mill around, and graze, and take care of themselves and their needs while we're out there. And it's really imperative that you think about how much this animal needs as far as nutrition to be able to take you up something like that and back. Now, if we're hunting, we got all kinds of things that we can do. We have bows, we have guns, we have to figure out, turn your face forward. We have all different types of things that we have to attach to this horse if we're not going to carry it. The whole purpose of all this backpacking, or like Bill said earlier, is to get us further back in, more animals, more beauty, more, if we're backpacking or whatever, to get us in a more remote place, more quiet, more chance of putting something down. And so that's the whole purpose that we do this, is to make it easier for us to get further back. There are two different types of ways that you can attach a scabbard. Bow scabbards pretty much attach just like this. In fact, I've got one, but I don't think it's here. And the bow just slides in like this. Bow scabbard is a very hard thing to pack on a horse, but it is capable of doing it. Two different ways of tying a gun scabbard to the horse. Usually it's on this side, and there's two different ways. You can either attach it like this. So you basically, what I do is go through the skirt like that, and then you basically tie this up there like this. And it's basically sitting like this. Now, I have personally witnessed horses, after you stop, you tie them up, they have gotten trees in between your scabbard gun stock. Your gun stock is in here, and they have snap stocks. This is a very, usually whenever we're talking in a hunting situation, the first thing that you take off your horse whenever you get off is your gun and your bow, and you take care of that. But this is a very dangerous if you do not do that, and you just tie the animal up.
Even riding, you get a small aspen, comes right in here, and
you have to be very careful with that.
I've seen a guy bust his brand new rifle, the stock just popped right off.
So what I normally do is I usually keep it in line with the horse. And again, we go through the skirt. How holds it here. And this particular one, as you can see, it has a strap here, goes up on the horn and holds it up. And then I hold my saddlebags underneath this just in case I do bump something. It's going to protect my stock and my scope and that kind of thing, which is going to lie right here. This, to me, has the most protection of an animal, or from the animal itself. Yeah. Your leg is protecting it. Your saddlebags, whatever you have on top, is protecting it. And to me, this is the best way. And that's why I modified this and put a string here, or a bracket there. And this is something you have to think about.
And a lot of the reason why you want it on the right side, a lot of people that haven't ridden a lot, most horses are trained you mount and dismount on the left side of your horse. That's called the offside. So you want the least amount of stress on your weapon, especially if you got a scope. You don't want to knock that scope out of line and everything. So you're mounting, you're getting on, you're getting off on the left side, so you're putting less stress and everything on your weapon on the right side.
So basically, this animal is ready right now to go out for a day trip. And pack whatever hunting method you're taking, if you're hunting. And this is pretty much all you would need. And as you can see, it pretty much protects your scope, protects the stock, protects the trigger casing. Everything is pretty much right here versus right here. But the shoulder that's the first thing that goes through trees, through downfalls, and that kind of thing. And that's another thing that we want to get into, is the thing that I call pack traps. And those are all the different things that are out there on the trail, in the woods, that are going to cause problems. They're going to ruin your trip, cause problems, cause wrecks, issues. Just thinking about this and preventing your gun from getting snapped off if you had it this way, that's a deal breaker right there. That your trip is over at that point unless you have a backup. So it's those kind of things in the preparation of these deals that we need to think about as far as what are the things that can make us go home, what are the things that can run the trip and those kind of things, and try to get all that stuff figured out before you go. Pack traps like bogs, downfalls, deadfalls. Does your horse know how to do that? And it's just like in life. Do we know how to do certain things that we're asked to do? And that's what we're talking about when we talk about pack traps. And you can relate that to many different areas, and especially when we start talking about actual packing, there are many different things. Can your animal pack meat? Can your animal pack pots and pans? Things that rattle. There's all those different types of things that we have to ask ourselves, are we prepared? Did we prepare us and the animal for that? So right now, basically, we have an animal that can go out on a day trip. We leave usually, 5 o'clock in the morning and try to be at our hunting spot whenever light comes, and this will pretty much get us there. We've got our gun, we've got our lunch, we've got our water, we've got everything right here. So what happens?
One thing I didn't mention earlier, what's good to have in your pack, especially for rifle hunting, keep a gun cleaning kit. Doesn't weigh anything, takes up hardly any space. You trip, you get something stuck in that barrel, it trips over. So you want something to be able to clean.
These right here are called saddle panniers. And these right here are what are used to take a conventional riding saddle and turn it into a pack animal. And the different things that you can do with this are, you can take a horse like this and turn it into, basically you're walking the animal, or you can take these and roll these up and ride the animal. And if you were to get something down or need to pack something out for whatever reason, you would have these with you, and they would go like this. This is basically just taking what we've rigged her up for one step further. Now we don't have to go back to camp if we've killed something and take everything off, go get a pack animal, or go back to camp and get the saddle panniers that we left at camp. And we've got them with us. And so basically this turns this animal into a multi-purpose tool. Basically she is now getting us somewhere, and she's also taking what we got out there back. And so that's really important. The next step in this is, does this animal know how to pack? Is she prepared? And I always say, when it comes to packing, there's absolutely no reason to pack a horse or a mule if you don't plan to use it. There is no reason to do it. There's no reason to prepare yourself for anything if you don't plan on using that skill. And so, unless you're training this animal to learn how to do it, there is no reason for her to know how to do it. She does know how to do it. So what we do, they basically go over the cantle and the pommel. And this is just your basic type of saddle pannier. You've got a breast collar just like the saddle here. And you can take this animal and turn it into your ultimate hunting rig. This is like that truck that's like painted in camel and like rigged out. It's like you're set. Basically, what this is just basically tie straps that kind of hold it next to the animal. What's basically holding this on is the cantle on this, the way it's sewn on here.
You're going to be going up and down, and that load's going to shift. Whether you're going up, you're going down, and you're going to keep that as tight as you can.
And so basically we're not tying this to the animal, we're allowing this to basically sit and the saddle is holding our loads. This is where we talk about balance, and this is the most important part about packing. Your loads on each side of this animal have to be balanced, even with a saddle. And if we are not balanced here, what's going to happen is as this horse moves, as she walks like this and the saddle shifts, which she does, as her shoulders come up and down, this will gradually work down and get to where it can roll. Or what it can do is it can get so far off to one side that you can gall your animal, which is basically create a sore in the hide of the animal because she's having to work against the bar or the tree. This is an example of an old type of saddle called a sawbuck saddle. And this is your tree right here. The bars of your saddle. And what this is made for is to fit the slope of the shoulder and the back and to basically contour to that animal. If this old saddle were padded right, it could still be used. But if this saddle was riding like this on the animal, now you're rubbing on the spine. And that's the most important thing that has to do with balance, is that animal cannot allow, this saddle has to ride in the streamline of this, the saddle has to ride in the streamline of this animal. It has to. So whatever you put in this side has to go in this side. So both sides of your pack, pretty much, you've got to either put the exact same thing. If you're doing an animal, you either put one shoulder one way and the other shoulder on the other side. Those are pretty uniform. It should be about the same size. Or you have to weigh it, or have a real good feel within a couple pounds, because as little as 3 to 5 pounds can cause this animal to start to shift. When you're talking about going up something like this, this little trail right here, we have what's called a switchback. So it goes this way and that way. It cuts down how steep the animal has to climb. But even at that pitch, or even something like this animal is working like crazy to get up that thing. And the last thing that she is going to worry about is what's on her back. She wants to get up that mountain. And so it's your job to prepare before you leave to go up that mountain. It's your job to make sure that she's not going to have any problems with what's tied to it.
Because unlike you being on her back riding, you can shift your weight according to where she's leaning. That elk isn't. So that's dead weight that she's got to try to position that, and if it's not balanced right, it's going to throw her off. And some of these trails are pretty nasty, and there's been a lot of horses died up in the mountains because they just went down a ravine because of that.
You can put things like all kinds of things. This is a that little ring that I made right here. You can show them around there. This is one of the biggest things you need to prepare for. You're usually not going to kill an animal if you're in a hunting situation. You're not going to shoot something that is as open as this round pin. You can ride up to it and get to it. How are you going to get that animal to it? Are you going to pack it on your back to the animal? Or are you going to be able to walk the animal directly to where you've put that animal down? You have got to have either a handsaw, hunting saw, or you've got to have some way to be able to clear brush, deadfall, so this animal can get to it. Otherwise, you have to prepare yourself for putting it on your back, which means you have to have some sort of frame with you. So there's all kinds of things we can do here. We just turn her into packing something out. One of my favorite ways to hunt is to take an animal like this and I ride her out, or I lead her. And you can pack this animal with whatever you want, whatever you need, whatever is going to take care of the animal. Remember, you have to think about the animal as far as feed and those kind of things. So you're probably going to want to make sure you take grain. But one of my favorite ways to hunt is to carry a pack on my back like that, my day pack, my hunting pack, and I walk her in packed in spike camp in the middle of nowhere. Basically, you set up tent and you make a camp, and the biggest provisions you have to think about is what's the animal going to eat and where's it going to drink. And those are the only two things you really have to worry about as far as food for her. But that way, you can take this animal, pack into someplace, set up camp, and then you can ride this animal to wherever you want to hunt. You can trail ride, you can, you don't have to go out on foot. You can use her as like basically an ATV. You can use her once you've gotten back so far to where you want to go. This just allows you going a little bit further. So you can get whatever you want. I don't remember where all of our stuff is packed. And we got some stuff like this. And like I said, the most important thing is to make sure that everything on this side equals in weight everything on that side. There's two different ways you can do that. You can pretty much do it by hand and sit there and basically pick the entire load up like this and feel it and see. But like I said, you have to be really good at this because you have to be able to see within a few pounds, 3 to 5 usually. Otherwise, this starts to work this way, and then it's just a matter of time. But this allows you, with one horse, to basically go in and stay and hunt, just with you and her. And if you had more than one guy, they could do the exact same thing, and you could just take that much more. One of the things that I was going to show, there's a whole bunch of different packs, a whole bunch of different saddles, a whole bit of different ways to pack. And this is what we consider a top pack. This basically lies like this. Sits right here in your seat and basically sits on top of both loads. Now when we get to the demonstration on the actual packing, whenever we get to Jackson here, this will be eliminated. I'm going to show you how to do that. But there's a lot of different styles and different ways. There's a couple other saddle panniers up there in the front that you can take a look and see all the different types. But basically, if you pack something like this, or let's say you pack a duffel bag or something on top, you want to make sure that it's a very balanced pack. That this in itself is balanced. You don't have binoculars and a bunch of weighted stuff at the bottom, and then the top of it is just like full of sheets and pillows or whatever you take it. It needs to be a fairly uniform pack from here to here, wherever your pack starts and stops. It needs to be fairly the same weight. And the reason, obviously, is because you basically are centering this on top of the saddle. And so any weight on this side is going to add more weight here, and it's just going to cause this saddle to shift, cause it to move back and forth. And then eventually you're either going to soar this animal, or she is going to have the saddle slip, and then you have serious issues. I've seen many wrecks, and I've seen many disasters caused by ill preparation, basically. And most of the time, it does damage to the horse. Not only physical, but psychologically. It is very, very hard if you're unprepared. It is very, very hard to put an animal through a wreck and try to get that animal's mind back. And it's the same way with us. In life, if we go through a wreck, a lot of times it takes a long time for us to get back to where we're supposed to be. So, that's a balanced pack right there. It is centered over this. Most saddle panniers have these straps which help tie in a top load. Okay, so pretty much what we've done is we've taken an animal from just a trail riding animal to now it's something that is going to sit there and do whatever we would need to do for basically a weekend. I mean, really more than that if this is just gear for one individual. We could pack so much stuff on here we could stay probably 3 or 4 days, one individual. And so, what we do is once this is done, what do we do if it rains? What do we do if it snows? Is all of our gear here going to get soaked? In the mountains, we see that storms come up like this and leave like that. And when they come, they come. And so we have to prepare ourselves as well to how do we protect that from getting just absolute soaked, showing up at camp, and now we're sleeping in a soaked sleeping bag and just uncomfortable situation. So there's 2 ways to do it. One is basically having some sort of canvas pack, canvas top pack like this, that takes the place of this. It takes the place of this. So basically, those cover the flaps of your side panels. Imagine this not being here. And those are now your protective cover, like this. Okay? And if that was sitting flat, then you would kind of see how the canvas is now your protective gear. The other way is what pretty much I do is use what's called a Manny tarp. A Manny tarp is basically just a piece of canvas. It's about, it's probably 6 by 5, 6 by 8, whatever you want. But it's big enough to carry whatever normally you pack. And you basically just cover it like that. And this is pretty much, you are completely weatherized with this. You are protected from going through trees, you're protected. And what I'm going to show you whenever we get to Jackson there is basically how to tie this enormous pack and load and all this stuff. How do you tie it onto this animal so it's not coming off? And that's what we're going to do when we start talking about this, as far as jacket. This right here is how you pack a saddle pannier. And that's for a saddle.
And one thing to keep in mind too, once you rode in, that horse is this wide. You're packing out, look at it from head on, and look at how wide your load is.
I can't stress enough the fact that not only you and your animal need to be prepared for this. And you need to spend time in a situation like this teaching the animal how to take this. Most animals that are 3 years old, 4 years old are not going to allow you to take this thing and go like this and throw it and stuff it in a bag. They will come unglued. So you have to prepare yourselves mentally for this animal to do this.
Even an older riding horse, unless you ride it all the time, they've never been introduced to blood. That's a whole different ballgame. And you may end up walking back without a horse, your elk, or anything. So that's something you got to work with them on that as well. One thing we were talking about too, the width of this horse now, you're leading this horse or mule, you've got to choose that trail so that this horse isn't going to get hung up in these deadfall branches. You're not going to pick a trail this wide knowing that the horse is now this wide. Okay? So that's one thing you've got to kind of pick that pathway that you're going to take them through so they're not going to get hung up and get a wreck with it.
One of the cool things that I learned in my job, which as Bill said earlier, we are both horseshoers, is the value of an apprenticeship. And I cannot stress this enough as far as this type of skill. And this is a skill that can take a horse and make it used to be what it's supposed to be used for. Is to learn under somebody, find somebody who knows, and learn from them the skills that you need. You will learn what you need to know in a shorter amount of time and with less injury and wrecks if you can find someone that knows and you can learn from them. That's true with just about everything in life.
You can learn by school of hard knocks, but it's a lot easier to have somebody tell you, hey, you're fixing to get yourself in a lot of trouble if you do that. You know, and that's especially with horses. A lot of people think, hey, you just get on them, and every horse is just like Trigger. I can shoot off of them, I can, you know, jump off the barn and get on his back, do all that stuff. And there's a lot of horses that you can. But like he was talking earlier, I was on a hunting trip one time with a horse. I had been riding it, great horse, been packed on. They packed elk, bear, everything out on this horse. Someone else had put down an elk and they needed to borrow this horse. And the owner let him do it. I personally wouldn't have done it if it was my horse, but the guy that owned him let him. And we didn't see what they did, but long story short, the horse ended up being lost in national forest for 2 days with a sawbuck like that still strapped to him and meat. And which basically he was just bear bait. And found him a few days later all cut up, chewed up and everything. Next year we took him out hunting and rode great. Get on him, I could ride him fine, no problem. We get up to that gut pile and I literally was falling backwards over these deadfalls like Jim's talking about. It was just crisscrossed everywhere. And that horse, I watched that belly guard go right over my head. Never packed him again. He was totally ruined because someone inexperienced took him and did something that they shouldn't have done with him and ruined him from now on for ever being a pack horse again.
And that's a good example of what a pack trap would be as well. I mean, that right there, just like in life, if we screw up and we mess up in a relationship or we mess up in our job or something like that, sometimes it takes a long time for us to get back to where we're supposed to be. And sometimes it can almost ruin a person. And this is a good example of how this animal right here, she can be ruined. Another good example is not every animal can handle me doing what I'm doing. I'm basically walking around this animal, I'm touching places that most animals don't like, I'm flapping things, and she's just standing there. Over there is an example, you probably can't see it, but you can see it when we break here, is an animal that is half thoroughbred and half quarter horse. You would never, hardly ever be able to do something like this with him. And it's behavioral. They're more high-strung, they're more, jittery, naturally, behaviorally.
They were bred for a different job.
And that's right. And that's just like us. We all have a job that we're supposed to do, and sometimes it's very hard for us to do something we weren't made to do. So that is basically how you take a saddle animal and either go trail riding, go hunting, go staying. You can do that and not even go hunting. You can go stay on a camp out trip with your horse or whatever. That's basically how you would do that if you just have a saddle.